Hello and welcome to everybody. This is Anxiety Hacks. So I'm so excited that you've joined me and it's fantastic to have you here. So before we begin, I just want to mention about my new book, Anxiety Hacks, that came out in November 2022. And I'm just about to launch the audiobook, the Anxiety Hacks audiobook, and that will be in May. So listen up, keep your ear to the ground because that's on its way. And it'll be on all the major platforms. Now, our guest today is very exciting. Our guest is Claire Gorman, and she is an inspiring empowerment coach, a master energy healer, medical intuitive, and advanced theta healer. With her unique blend of skills and knowledge, she can help release her clients' emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual burdens. After a life-altering experience as a hairdresser, where she often found herself shouldering the anxieties of her clients, she discovered the power of theta healing to alleviate her anxiety and burnout. And this sparked an unexpected career change that has enabled her to help others find peace and joy in their lives through compassionate wisdom and education. Now, Claire works with individuals to empower them through difficult experiences. She helps them create a brighter future while also honoring their sense of truth and purpose. So I'm very excited to welcome Claire. Thank you
Hi,
so
Kate.
much.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is great. So now let's start at the beginning. So tell us about what happened. And so you were working as a beautician and a hairdresser.
Yeah, so
And
I had like so I had like 35 years in the hair and beauty industry, working in like different sectors. As you can hear, I'm English, but I live in Australia. I've been here for 10 years. And when I landed on Aussie soil, I knew I wanted to do something. So I reopened another business out here. And it was quite a unique business. I worked with a lot of women where I really wanted to transform them on the outside. So although I was a hairdresser born and bred, I also work with women sort of in their like 40s plus. So I did their hair, we looked at makeup, I did personal styling, I did color analysis, and I really worked with women, in a VIP sort of boutique capacity. And we looked at healthy skincare. It was a real holistic business. But what led me to that was just constant burnout of running a full column business. And I thought I
yeah,
needed to really work smarter, and not harder. And this sort of business just grew because I knew that this business was very inspiring. But what actually happened was, through the burnout, through working with a lot of chemicals in my whole life, was that I was unwell. I would have weeks where I was go, 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 I was thriving, and then other weeks where I was really at rock bottom. Not that a lot of people saw that in me because I was very good at wearing the masks. And what happened was, and I always think people come into your life for a reason. And, I did attract a lot of quite spiritual people as clients. And one day I met this lady and she was a Theta Healer and she invited me. I was intrigued and she invited me over to start having some sessions. And I'm one of those people that think, oh, in for a penny, in for a pound, I'll have a go at that. Yeah, I'll try this, I'll try that.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
went along and I had this amazing session. I actually ended up having a past life regression. And I walked out of that session like floating on cloud nine. And I thought, wow, I've never felt this like inner peace ever. And I thought I've got to go back and have another one. And really what was interesting was it was the effects after a few days later where I was a constant people pleaser. And
Right.
I would put my clients above my own health and well-being. I'd even put them in front of my own family, my own relationships and things like that. So,
Mm.
if you were going to say an archetype, I was total slave girl archetype. And what actually stopped me and shocked me in my tracks was my daughter came up to me. She was probably only about 9 at the time. And normally she would ask me something, and I'd had a very stressful day, working with clients, and as a hairdresser, they offload onto you. And I replied, and I replied in the most loving, gentle way. And I thought, who is this person? I wouldn't normally like reply like that. Normally I'd be quite snappy. Um, with her. And I thought, this is interesting. So I went back and had more sessions, and I became calmer and more at ease. And I started to sleep better. And I thought, this is really interesting. And it was actually after about 6 months, my parents are still in the UK. And my mum turned around to me one day, we'd FaceTime once a week. And she said to me, are you all right? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. What's the matter? Why? And she said, well, there's something different about you. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, to put it this way, she said, you look happy. And I said, do I? She said, yeah. And I've never seen you look happy like this. And I thought, oh, wow, how
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. I'm actually getting shivers and tingles when I say this to you. And it was just like, oh, wow. And I thought, oh, people are starting to notice that I'm different. So I started keep going back. And it was a beautiful way of self-care. And I just felt better. And what was really interesting is the more that I worked on myself and changed myself, the outside world was changing around me. And this is what they say, you're not happy where you are. You want to change the world, change yourself,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
outside world is actually a mirror reflection of who you are on the inside. And this is what was happening. And what was happening was I was starting to put boundaries in place, but loving boundaries, and I found them really easy to put in place. I was becoming stronger. I suffered with terrible migraines. But what was interesting was I wasn't taking on my clients' issues anymore. And this is what I was noticing, was that I would have certain people that would be around me. They would come in, have their hair done, they would offload, like most people do, have a good conversation. But what used to happen to me was these clients would leave, and I would have days of processing their emotions. I was actually absorbing like a sponge their emotions. So they would leave the salon feeling absolutely fantastic. Oh, I feel like $1 million. Claire's amazing. And I would be processing, I'd be waking up in the night thinking, oh my gosh, that poor woman, her son's being bullied at school. And I was just getting more anxious and anxious and anxious. And it was actually really debilitating because, it was affecting, I had really bad gut issues. I had really bad women
That came out
problems as
physically. Yeah.
well. So I was actually pulling their stuff in, and it was being quite toxicating in my body. That's really what was happening for me. But
Yeah.
I never knew how to release any of this stuff or shift it. So through the Theta healing, this is what started to change. And then I'll forward fast. Basically, what happened was COVID landed, and I always look at something now as I was given the gift of time, because literally 50% of my business had to close overnight. And we were based in Melbourne, so we were in lockdown for a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
thought, okay, and I always knew in some point, but by the time I always made this rule, by the time I got to 50, I knew I wasn't going to be behind on the tools or doing anything. That's why I really went down image work and stuff like that, so I didn't have to do so much hairdressing. Um, Anyway, so COVID hit, and I loved Theta healing. And I'm one of those sort of people that if I like something, I will research it. And that's the teacher in me, because I actually used to be a hairdressing teacher as well for a global hair and beauty company. So I do have that type of brain and that background. So I was researching a lot. I was learning about the law of attraction, manifesting, how did Theta Healing work? How did this work? How did that work? If I tried it, I actually use Theta Healing in my business. If I use it in my business, how does that change? And I was just playing around with this sort of modality. I wasn't trained in it, but I was just like, okay, let's work on this and let's
Learning
work on
about it.
that. And
So, Claire,
it's
so
so
for
interesting.
people that don't know, so the Theta Healing, so how would you explain it?
So Theta Healing is a modality that basically puts you into a hypnotic state and works on the theta brainwave. And what theta does, it can be used in lots of different ways. It can be used as personal development, but it also can be used very, very spiritually and intuitively led. So that's how I was playing around with it, because I was going literally one side of a personal development and business tool straight through into like past life regression and things like that. So basically, the practitioner would put a client into a very relaxed state, a theta brainwave, and the practitioner would tune in to guidance. So we use the divine guidance. We call it the creator of all that is, and we will hear that this person will have this limiting belief. This is their energetic block. This is what's going on. So it's quite psychic in some ways.
Yeah.
And then what we'll do is we'll mix in a form of kinesiology, which is muscle testing, to actually show that client that is your limiting belief, that's your block, and we will muscle test them for that process. Because most of our everyday processes are limiting our beliefs that have been installed in us. And we run on like, I think it's like 90% of subconscious mind programs. Now, with Theta Healing, what I love about this modality is that it works across 4 different levels. So it works on your limiting beliefs that you have picked up in this life. And then it also works on like your genetic beliefs. So programs that you've picked up from your parents, your grandparents, it goes back 7 generations. And then it also will pick it up from your ancestral line as well. So it will go back like 8 generations and more back. It
Right.
also will find the limiting beliefs or the programs or the paradigms that you've got installed that you're picking up in the collective consciousness as well, who you're hanging around with.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. From me moving to England to Australia, I really noticed that massive shift in me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Anyway, and it will also pick things up on a soul level. So when you're clearing beliefs, you clear them on all those 4 levels.
Right.
And the beautiful thing is when you clear them, you also clear them. You can also clear them in your future generations. So when I work on myself, I can actually see things changing in my parents, and I can also see it changing in my children as well, because they share DNA with me.
Yeah.
So it's mind-blowing, but it's incredibly powerful.
And
And it's a
can it
very
help
quick
people?
technique.
So people with anxiety, if they were interested, so how could it help them specifically?
So what I've noticed in working, like being a client of Theta Healing and also being a practitioner, is what happens is that a lot of people that I've worked on and worked with, they have anxiety sometimes, and this is what happened to me, is because they're pulling it in from other people. Okay, so like me with my clients, I was just getting anxious. A lot of people that are naturally aware of like energies and feelings and emotions will walk into a room and then that anxiety will kick in, or they actually know before they go into that room, oh, the anxiety kicks in, because they can actually psychically feel it before they go in, and it will start to trigger them. So by releasing the programs and the beliefs, and that's where intuition is great, and hearing it, is because everybody's got slightly different programs. There's not one size that fits all with everybody, but you can literally change the beliefs, change the programs, and you can actually physically make them quite strong so that the anxiety doesn't kick in. Now, when we look at anxiety from a metaphysical point of view, when we work at it through like Theta Healing and other modalities, because I'm trained in a few, is that anxiety is actually the fear of the future, and then depression is regrets of the past. So when someone works with me and I know they've got anxiety, I will work on their fears of where they are moving forward to, and we'll make them really, really strong and things like that. So we can change the programs like I don't fear, I feel safe, I'm secure, and things like that. So depending on what area that they want to work on and things like that. So that's
So
where
if
Theta
somebody
Healing
was
can help.
listening to this, okay, so what how could they help themselves?
So the first, one of the things, if they wanted to like sort of do a bit of self-healing, the best way is to make sure that you are looking at a good diet and you are looking at great vitamins and minerals. That's going to help them. And also meditation as well, because meditation makes them still and makes their mind still. And then especially if it's a guided meditation, because there's certain guided meditations that we use through Theta Healing, is that you can talk to them and you can help them release those energies and those feelings and those emotions. Because the important thing is that when you're working with people in this type of healing, is that you can't leave someone as an empty void. So if you pull a program or an emotion or a feeling or a limiting belief, you cannot leave that person like an empty energy void. You actually have to install them with something that's positive. So you could take out fear and then replace it with something like joy, strength, happiness, like a different type of feeling or an emotion or a belief,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
they feel whole and complete. Because if you leave them empty, they're just going to pull in other energies that you don't want them, or feelings or emotions that you don't want them to have. So guided meditations, vitamins and minerals, but also getting into nature as well, that's going to help them.
yeah. And so do you have any guided meditations?
Yeah, so if you go onto my website, there's free complimentary meditations bundles on there. I have like digital stuff that's all pre-recorded, so that's there as well. So if anybody wants some free stuff, or just reach out to me, because I have a lot of pre-recorded stuff, and if somebody needs something, I'll just send them to it. It's not send them it.
Yeah.
It's not a
And
hardship for
so what
me
was the name of
to
your
do that.
website while we're talking about
It's
it?
just clairegorman.com.au.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll have all the links in the show notes anyway for people to
Yeah,
contact you.
yeah. But yeah, but I found for me when I first started and to release the meditations, it was like changing a few limiting beliefs
Yeah,
and meditation, getting into stillness. Journaling will help massively, and really start to write down, what are your fears? What are you fearing? What's the fear of your future?
yeah,
And
yeah.
answer those questions.
So many of my clients find journaling so powerful. A lot of what you
Yeah.
said there is so powerful, but particularly journaling. People don't realize that how powerful it can be by writing out those difficult fears and feelings that you have about the future or the past, whatever it may be. You can really begin to understand them and maybe help you to work through and then to let them go.
Yeah, and also really be aware, like I don't listen to the news anymore, because
Mm.
that would kick me off, feeling really, really anxious. And I really watched what I saw on social media, what I watched on television. I mean, my guilty pleasure was The Real Housewives. I can't watch that anymore because of the
Oh,
constant bickering and bitching. Like it used to, it would just stress me out. So although I loved it, I can't watch things like that. So really what I watch on TV, um uh starting to listen to very positive podcasts, okay, because that's inspiring as well. Who I surrounded myself with and things like that. And really started to watch what I ate as well. This is quite key. When I work with a lot of souls that are anxious,
Yeah.
that are empaths and sensitives, because I do see a pattern around that as well. And also, you know, I have these conversations with a lot of other mums when they have children that are, you know, anxious as well. And I say, you know, what do you eat? And I say, you know, do you struggle? Are you vegetarian? And they say, yeah, we can't eat meat. And I was like, yeah, because sometimes a lot of anxiety empaths and sensitives cannot eat meat because they can actually pick up the energies of how that poor animal has passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I say that to a lot of mums with children that are, you know, whether they're ADHD and things like that, they say, yeah, I have constant battles with my children to eat meat, and you know, they won't do it, they won't do it, they want to become vegetarian. And I'm like, yeah, because they can feel the emotions of that person, or they can feel the emotions of that animal, if especially if it's passed away in not a nice way.
Yeah.
And like the parents are like quite shocked when you say something like that. And I know myself, I am a meat eater, but I will go some days, some weeks where I just can't. It depends if I'm shifting or I'm moving. Because I'm quite strong. I'm very strong now, because obviously the sort of work that I do, I have to hold a lot of energy and space for other clients, especially when they're releasing a lot of trauma and things like that. You know, I've had to make myself strong and in my belief work and things like that. Hairdresser Claire could not be doing the work now,
Yeah.
because I just be taking it on from everybody, and that you know, I'll probably only be able to do one client a month or something like that now, if I was
Yeah.
that old person. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating. I love it. It's
It is.
really interesting.
I absolutely love what I do. It's amazing. No client is the same, and you know, I can literally be working on karmic patterns, past life, quantum jumping, future readings. Yeah, you know, goddess work and lots of different things. Yeah, but the great thing about, you know, working with clients that do have anxiety is that you can see a massive difference. And when you start to open them up to intuition, and that, you know, intuition, that gut instinct, they become naturally quite strong and they become confident. And then
Yeah.
that anxiety starts to melt away. So you can see it in a different way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you work with people online?
Yes, all online. Yeah. Yeah, so literally it's quite a turnaround for me from being face to face with someone, and I do everything online. I work with people all over the world. I've got clients in Canada. I've had them in America, UK. It's just amazing. It's just like it blows my mind sometimes. I think, wow,
Yeah.
this is where I was a number of years ago, and this is where I'm now. And it is, you know, through mindset and energetics and taking action. That's the three things.
Yeah.
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 And not fearing the action.
And so if people wanted to get in contact with you, is the best place then online on your website?
Website, yeah, clairegorman.com.au, and on socials, Facebook and Instagram, it's just Claire Gorman Official, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. I don't tend to hang out on LinkedIn that often, and I have a Facebook community group. So if people are into learning more about, you know, woo-woo stuff and spiritualism, but
Woo stuff.
also want to see how I work, how I heal. You know, I do the odd healing and channeling and things like that in there. So, you know, if they want to come and hang out in the group,
What's it
it's
called?
holistic spiritual community.
Holistic Spiritual Community.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for, for sharing your journey and then, and amazing work that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very blessed. I love what I do, and I love seeing my clients like shift and transform and just step into, you know, great possibilities of living a rich life. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks,
Oh,
Kate.
excellent. I love it. I love it. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you, Claire. So, and that's all for today's episode of Anxiety Hacks. And thank you to everybody for listening. And before we go, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast from wherever you listen. And it would be great if you could swipe to the right and leave a review. That would be great. So thank you to everybody. And I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.